There is a deeply ingrained sadness that attaches itself to a great video game prequel. When you sit down to play a story that takes place before a game you already know inside out, everything feels different. You aren't just discovering a plot for the first time, you are watching a car crash in slow motion.
You fight Genbu, master of ninja sneaking!
You already know exactly where the wreckage ends up, you know who survives, and you know who is destined to become a sacred bitter shell of themselves. When we first stepped into the moonlit world of feudal Japan back in Index Entry 65, we were introduced to Rikimaru and Ayame as the absolute elite of the Azuma ninja clan. They were cold, lethal weapons who moved through the shadows with quiet, unquestioned and precision. They felt hardened and completely unshakable. But Tenchu 2, Birth of the Stealth Assassins, pulls back the curtain to reveal that this skill wasn't something they were just born with. It was a shield forced on them by a brutal, deeply personal tragedy. Instead of starting our journey as the legendary heroes of the Goda estate, we are thrown back to a time when our protagonists were just flawed teenagers struggling to survive their final days of training. Rikimaru isn't a competent master yet. He is an overly stiff, naive student who hasn't even earned his iconic facial scar. Ayame is a wild, emotional young girl whose lethal instincts are completely unrefined. Alongside them stands Tatsumaru, their charismatic older classmate, the golden boy who is destined to take over the leadership of the Azuma clan. It is a setup filled with tragic irony. As a first-time player stepping into this timeline blindly, you are forced to watch these three young companions share a deep family-like bond, all while knowing that this cruel world is actively preparing to tear them apart. The story doesn't hook you with a simple quest to defeat a cartoon villain. It hooks you by forcing you to watch the painful collapse of a family, turning the quiet stealth gameplay into an agonising countdown towards a legendary betrayal. Welcome to the PSX Index, I'm Parasine, and this is the show where I play and document all 1,278 PS1 games released across Northern America, and this episode is Index Entry 217. We are stepping directly into the quiet lethal shadows of feudal Japan. When the original Tenchu dropped in the late 90s, it helped define the entire console stealth genre alongside games like Metal Gear Solid. It was a massive hit, which meant a sequel was inevitable. Hitting stores in the summer of 2000, Tenchu 2 arrived at a fascinating turning point in gaming history. The PlayStation 2 was already launching, meaning the developers at Acquire were tasked with pushing the original aging PlayStation hardware to its absolute limits. As we document this entry, we are looking at a game that completely reframes the world we thought we knew. Since this is a brand new experience for me and my first time playing through the sequel, we are going to look at this classic with entirely fresh eyes. Over the course of this deep dive, we're going to dissect the massive mechanical upgrades that fix the clunkiness of the first game, the brilliant decision to split the narrative across three separate characters, and what it actually feels like to navigate these sprawling tactical sandboxes blindly. The grapple hook is packed, the guards are on patrol, and the tragic origin is about to unfold. Keep your backs to the wall and stay quiet, this is Index Entry 217.
Are you ready, Ayame?
I was born ready.
We shall see.
Stepping into a classic stealth sequence completely blind changes how you look at the game design. When you have a solid grasp on how the original title worked, your hands expect the controls to feel exactly the same. You expect the same jittery camera, the same restricted view distance, and the same rigged movement patterns. But playing this game for the very first time clears away all that expectation and replaces it with immediate curiosity. You are forced to learn the rules of this world from scratch, figuring out exactly how the rules of engagement have changed. The first thing that hits you when you pick up the controller is just how much smoother the characters' physics feel. The developers clearly listened to the feedback from the first game, turning what used to be an incredibly stiff, tank-like movement style into something much more fluid and natural. Your character turns faster, jumps with more precision, and feels far more responsive when you are trying to quickly duck behind a low wall. For a first time playthrough, this immediate jump and control quality makes the game highly engaging from the very first mission. However, going into this blind also means you are completely at the mercy of the level layout. You don't know where the guards are positioned, you don't know the exact sightlines of the rooftop archers, and you have no idea what lies around the next dark corner. It creates a great sense of tension that perfectly matches the theme of being a ninja. You can't rely on old memory to bail you out of a bad situation. Instead, you have to move slowly, use your tools wisely, and adapt to mistakes on the fly. This fresh perspective really highlights the core ambition of the development team. They didn't just recycle the exact same engine and throw a number 2 on the box. They fundamentally rethought how the player interacts with the environment. Experiencing these changes for the first time gives you a deep appreciation for the mechanical jump between the two entries, setting a highly promising tone for the massive stealth sandbox ahead.
Are you okay, Semimaru? Good boy. You are so tough, Semimaru.
Ayame, you guys okay? Come on, let's get going.
From a gameplay perspective, Tenchu 2 introduces a massive wave of quality of life updates that completely changes how you approach a mission. The first game laid down the basic foundation of 3D console stealth, but it often felt like you were fighting the mechanics just as much as the enemy samurai. This time around, the developers focused on expanding your tactical options, giving you a much wider toolkit to handle the patrols and navigate the environment. The biggest and most satisfying upgrade is the ability to finally interact with the environment to hide your presence. In the previous game, once you took an enemy down, their body just stayed exactly where it fell, leaving a permanent hazard for the guards to find. Now, you can actually crouch down, pick up a fallen guard, and drag them into the shadows or hide them behind buildings. It completely alters the pacing of the game, letting you clean up crime scenes and maintain your ghost-like status even in heavily patrolled areas. Another brilliant addition that completely opens up the level design is the new water mechanics. Instead of water being an instant death hazard or a hard barrier, your ninja can now jump straight into a river, swim across the channels, and even dive beneath the surface to hide. You can use a hollow reed to breathe underwater, allowing you to wait out a guard's patrol route right beneath their nose before leaping out for a silent takedown. It adds a fantastic layer of verticality to the stealth, turning bodies of water into valuable tactical pathways rather than frustrating obstacles. On top of that, your item pool has been massively expanded, giving you way more toys to play with. You still have your trusty grappling hook to snap onto the rooftops instantly, but now you can carry a variety of traps, poisons, rice cakes, and caltrops to actively manipulate guard behaviour. The combat and stealth loops no longer feel like a rigged puzzle with only one correct solution. Instead, the game rewards experimentation, giving you a mechanical freedom to handle mistakes creatively and feel like a true master of the shadows. When you look at the physical architecture of Tenchu 2, you can see a massive leap forward in how the developers built their 3D environments. In the late 90s, console games struggled hard with draw distance. To keep the hardware from crashing, the original game wrapped everything in a pitch black, suffocating fog that only let you see a few feet ahead. It worked brilliantly for atmosphere, but it was a massive technical crutch. This time around, the engine has been heavily upgraded to push those boundaries, trading the endless night for sprawling daylight missions and vastly more complex geometry. Stepping onto these rooftops for the first time reveals just how much more detailed the world has become. Instead of flat, blocky villages, you are navigating realistic castles, winding mountain paths, and dense bamboo forests. The textures still have that classic jittery PlayStation warp when you look at them from an angle, but the sheer scale of the levels is incredibly impressive for the hardware. The game handles lines of sight with much greater precision, forcing you to use the actual shape of the buildings, like slope roofs, outer walls, and low crawl spaces to break the enemy's view. The iconic grappling hook is still your absolute best friend for vertical movement, but the improved layout changes how you use it. Because the draw distance is wider, you can actually scout ahead from a high vantage point, tracking guards' routes across the entire courtyard before making your move. You aren't just blindly dropping into the dark anymore, you are actively reading the terrain like a tactical map. It is a masterclass in working with the strict technical limitations. The developers couldn't completely eliminate the hardware limitations of the console, but they used clever layout design to make the world feel open, bright and organic. It proves that good level design isn't about how many polygons you can throw on screen, but how smart you force the player to interact with the geometry around them to survive. The narrative structure of Tenchu 2 takes a massive leap forward by splitting the entire campaign across 3 separate playable characters. In many action games of this era, choosing a different character usually just meant a cosmetic swap or slightly different stats while running through the exact same levels. Here, the developers used the split to tell a massive multi-layered story. You can play through the campaign as Rikimaru, Ayame, or the unlockable senior disciple, Tatsumaru. Each character features their own unique set of missions, cutscenes, and entirely distinct levels. What makes this design so brilliant is how it handles chronological events. To get the full picture of the plot, you are required to see the exact same tragic conflict through 3 completely different pairs of eyes. A major event or a mysterious disappearance in Rikimaru's campaign won't fully make sense until you jump over to Ayame's story and play out what she was doing on the other side of the castle at the exact same moment. It turns the entire plot into a giant narrative puzzle, completely shifting your perspective on who the real villains are as you unlock each new character. The split also translates beautifully into different gameplay styles. Rikimaru is the heavy hitter, using slow, deliberate sword strikes and relying on pure, traditional stealth logic. Ayame, on the other hand, is lightning fast, utilising dual daggers and a highly aerobatic movement style that lets her vault over obstacles and chain rapid takedowns together. When you finally unlock Tatsumaru, his style changes yet again, discarding traditional ninja tools to fight entirely with fluid, unarmed martial arts. By forcing you to inhabit 3 completely different mindsets, the game completely avoids the repetitive fatigue that usually plagues stealth titles. It is a fantastic way to flesh out the world, ensuring that every time you think you have the layout of the story figured out, the game swaps your perspective and challenges you to master an entirely new way to hunt in the shadows. One of the most forward-thinking features included in Tenchu 2 is a fully realised, incredibly robust mission editor. During the PlayStation's era, when developers threw a level creation tool in a console's release, it was usually a cheap, heavily limited afterthought. It was often just a basic grid where you could slide a few blocks around before immediately getting bored, but Acquire took a completely different approach, treating their level editor like a major selling point and giving players a shocking amount of creative freedom right inside their living rooms. When you boot up the creator, you aren't just messing with basic parameters, you are handed the literal building blocks of the main game. You start by picking a core objective for your custom map, whether that means hunting down a specific high value target, wiping out every single guard on patrol, or safely escorting a vulnerable non-player character to a designated escape point. From there, you switch over to a clear, top-down map grid where you can meticulously piece together the entire layout from scratch, using various tile sets to build winding down streets, high village walls, and functional castle gates. The level of granular control on display here is genuinely impressive for a 32-bit console game. You don't just throw down static enemies and call it a day. You can actively place specific interactive objects like hidden pit traps, weapon racks, and decorative lanterns to set the exact visual mood. More importantly, you can manually program individual guard behaviour, drawing complex patrol paths and choosing exactly which direction an enemy faces when keeping watch over a critical choke point. It is a brilliant piece of design that essentially predated the modern boom of user-generated content by a full decade, long before sandboxes and official share buttons became a standard industry staple. This tool allowed creative players to stretch the game's lifespan almost indefinitely by saving custom stealth gauntlets onto standard memory cards to trade with their friends. It treats the player like a real level designer, proving that the game's stealth engine was so mechanically sound that it could easily be handed over to an audience to create their own satisfying challenges.
I'm not trying to fool anyone. I'm happy. I rejoice in this carnage.
Then why are there tears in your eyes?
It's just sweat in my eyes. What are you doing? Let me go. Let me go. You have your orders. Go now and burn the Azuma village to the ground. There is no going back. We have to do it this way. I owe it to all the ninja who believe in my dream. I owe it to all those who died following my orders.
For all the incredible upgrades to the level design and the stealth toolkits, Tenchu 2 suffers from a very specific, highly frustrating structural design flaw. It is a dry mechanical roadblock that shatters the immersion of your first time playthrough. The mandatory boss battles. The game spends hours teaching you to be an invisible ghost, rewarding you for creeping slowly through the shadows, avoiding direct sightlines and taking down guards with the backs turned. But the moment you reach the end of the map, the game completely throws its own rulebook out the window. Suddenly, you are locked in a tiny enclosed arena for a forced face-to-face duel against a powerful story villain. The brilliant tactical freedom you just used to clear out the entire castle is instantly stripped away, and you are forced to fight using an engine that was never built for traditional action-heavy combat. The original PlayStation's tank controls, which work perfectly fine when you were lining up a stealth kill or climbing on a roof, feels incredibly stiff and clumsy when you are trying to rapidly circle strafe, parry, or dodge aggressive sword combos in real time. It creates a jarring mechanical whiplash that turns these dynamic story moments into exercises in pure patience. You go from feeling like a legendary, all-powerful ninja master to a clumsy puppet, desperately trying to wrestle with a jittery camera while your character slowly pivots to face an opponent who moves twice as fast as you do. There is a humorous irony in the fact that your ultimate ninja toolkit, packed with smoke bombs, poison food, and advanced traps, is often completely useless here because the bosses are entirely immune to stealth items. This friction is a classic example of a mid-90s design trope that aged terribly. The developers felt obligated to include traditional arcade-style boss fights to mark the end of the level, completely failing to realise that the true climax of a stealth game is the perfect infiltration itself. It doesn't ruin the overall experience, but it acts as a massive speed bump in the game's pacing, proving that even the most advanced stealth engine of the era could still be completely derailed by an old-school face-off. The overall atmosphere of a ninja game relies heavily on its soundscape, and Tenchu 2 delivers one of the most memorable audio presentations on the PlayStation. Noriyuki Asakura returned to compose the soundtrack, and his work here is a masterclass in establishing tension. Instead of filling the background with frantic, high-energy action tracks, the music focuses on building a deep sense of quiet isolation, perfectly matching the mental state of the assassin waiting in the dark. The score thrives on contrast. It beautifully blends traditional Japanese instruments, like the piercing breathy note of the shakuhachi flute and the sharp rhythmic plucking of the shamisen, with subtle modern electronic grooves and deep bass lines. When you are crouching on a high rooftop overlooking a heavily guarded courtyard, the music stays incredibly minimal, offering just enough rhythmic pulse to mimic a racing heartbeat. It doesn't distract you from the task at hand, it enhances your focus, making the act of stalking a target feel incredibly intense. Then the second you are spotted, the layout flashes from green to red, the audio shifts dynamically, the traditional strings aggressively kick into a high gear, driving home the sudden panic of compromised position. This music reactively is paired with the excellent environmental sound design. You are constantly listening for the heavy, rhythmic footsteps of patrolling guards, the distinct metallic clink of their armour, or the sudden, startled gasp of a servant who just caught a glimpse of your shadow. For a first-time playthrough, these audio cues are just as important as the visual radar. The sound design acts as a physical tool, allowing you to accurately judge distances and guard awareness through audio alone. It is a brilliant realisation of how audio can be used to ground a player in a specific historical era, ensuring that even when the aging 32-bit graphics show their limitations, the rich, atmospheric audio keeps your hands firmly locked onto the controller.
Never start a fight you're not prepared to finish, boy.
You!
Seiru, we're leaving.
Yes. You're not going anywhere.
Your anger betrays you. You cannot conquer me if you cannot conquer your feelings. You didn't kill Seiru, so I will spare you. Listen carefully, Rikimaru. A new day is dawning. Conquer your emotions, attain selflessness, and then we'll let you join us.
Motohide murdered Lady K, and he kidnapped Princess Kiku. I'm going after her.
Ultimately, Tenchu 2 Birth of the Stealth Assassins is a massive triumph for the Twilight era of the original PlayStation. It took the rough, unrefined stealth concepts of the late 90s and polished them into a genuinely deep, highly rewarding tactical sandbox. By giving us the mechanical freedom to hide bodies, swim through danger, and build our own custom maps, the developers didn't just cash in on a sequel, they pushed the hardware to its absolute limit to tell a beautiful, heartbreaking origin story. Experiencing this tragic downfall completely blind reminds you exactly why this franchise became a legendary staple of the 32-bit generation. 217 games down, 1061 to go, but as we slide our swords back into their scabbards and step out of the shadows of feudal Japan, Our long journey through the North American catalogue is about to take us in a completely different direction. For the next block of the index, we are trading our grappling hooks for baseball bats and stepping onto the plate for a massive multi-year sports marathon. Get ready, because entries 218 through to 226 are going to throw us directly into the complete history of Sony's flagship baseball franchise on the PlayStation 1. We are going to chart the entire evolution of the sport from MLB Pennant Race, straight through to MLB 98, all the way through to the console's absolute final inning in MLB 2005. It is a massive 9-game doubleheader that tracks the rapid rise of simulation sports graphics and gameplay on a single piece of hardware. If you enjoyed this look into the shadows of the Azuma clan, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming opening day marathon, and leave a comment below letting me know your favourite character campaign in Tenchu 2. A massive special thanks goes out to the channel members whose incredible ongoing support keeps this massive documentation mission moving forward every single week. Your backing is the real backbone of the index. Clean off your cleats, study the pitching chart, and I will see you in the ballpark for index entry 218.